It's really wonderful. It's right on. Girls are running around here with khaki shirts and khaki pants on over the pajamas. Yeah, it was all very wonderful. Everything up was done for. And one thing I must put in a plug for the steward department. The steward has got about 7 or 8 men in his department here, and all of a sudden he's thrown in with 130 extra people to feed. How he managed it, I do not know. But he assured me that everyone had eggs for breakfast. Thereafter, he kept up supplies of coffee and sandwiches all the way through. No one went hungry, and the only thing I was worrying about how long the food would last. Fortunately, we only had 1 day of it.
Yes, well, you only have 43 of a crew.
Also.
Altogether, and that's you make 44, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And you'll see times as many passengers. Generally, it's for small ships. It's 1 crew for every 1 passenger. By the proportion that it works out. In fact, more so than that on a very small ship. Even a ship of 100 people, you generally have a crew of 100. Of 100 passengers, you generally have a crew of 100 persons. I had a crew of 43 and 130 passengers.
Well, Captain, I must congratulate you again on your good work. I guess you are busy and want to do something else now.
Well, congratulate me all you like, but congratulate the crew. That could not be done without their assistance, without the wholehearted cooperation.
I will
indeed,
Captain, and I'm going to talk to a couple of them and see what their opinions and ideas are.
Sure.
In all, with only 2 lifeboats, she rescued 129 people, mostly women and children. And also, one of her boats ferried a boatload of badly injured people to the liner Ile-de-France so that they could receive proper medical attention. The accident occurred on July the 25th, 1956 at 11:24 p.m. The Cape Ann arrived on the scene about midnight and left at 5 a.m. on the 26th of July and docked in New York with her survivors at 7 p.m., July the 26th. She sailed from New York again on July the 31st for La Police, France, still under the command of Captain Boyd, the voyage on which this recording was made. Well, Captain Boyd, it's about a week or so now since the famous rescue that you made on July the 26th. I suppose your nerves have calmed down a little by now, and you're able to give us a few words about your memories of this rescue.
Yeah, it's pretty well eased off now, after we could see almost. What do you want to know?
When you arrived near the scene of the accident, Captain, could you see either of the ships at all?
No, it's still a thick fog. And that's when I had my head stuck in the radar, going along there, and I must have been within about a quarter mile of them before the officer that I had out in the bridge sung out that he could see the glow of lights begin to move through the fog.
When you launched the lifeboat, could you see anything very much at all?
Still fog.
Still dense fog.
In fact, I was nervous about that I'm launching boats in the fog and they're out here in the Atlantic and heaven knows what's going to happen to them.
Who did you put in charge of the lifeboat, Captain?
Mr. Field, Chief Officer, in charge of the number 2 boat. Mr. Jensen on the number 1 boat.
How did your crew respond to that?
Very well. Wonderfully. Absolutely no confusion, no questions asked. The men come out there when I threw the alarm bells in the middle of the night. Really was amazing.
Well, that's very gratifying, I think.
And the boats went down, no trouble. Men manned the boats and on the command, they shoved off and started off through the fog.
How long was it after the fog, before the fog cleared?
The fog my memory of it was about 1 o'clock. Naturally, things maybe 10, 15 minutes out of that at any one given time.
Where were your boats then?
Both boats were already away. They were on their way over to the Doria, and they were going in on the sound whistle. She was mooring to the mast with a whistle, the international signal that the vessel stopped. The vessel underway, but stopped and having no way upon it. And that's all they homing in on that.
What were your reactions when the fog cleared and you actually saw the condition of this liner, which I believe nobody had thought very serious before that?
I was really dismayed. I actually thought that ship was going to go in a very short time.
She was listening then about what?
So when I first saw her, when the fog lifted, I should say about 35 degrees. And inside of half an hour, she was listed about another 10 degrees. No, about 45. And still desperate calls were coming over the radio, but all lifeboats. There were no other vessels around at this time, just myself there. And there was my 2 lifeboats. I wondered how on earth I was going to transfer 1,600 people. didn't give the ship more than about 1 hour from the look of it then. But fortunately, she reached a certain point and held on. Held on at that 45-degree angle, almost as far as I can find out, until about half an hour before she actually went under. She did not increase the risk anymore.
I understand it, in spite of the fact that most of your experienced seamen were in the lifeboat, that you had both your accommodation ladders rigged during the time the boats were away, and because of that, the survivors, in effect, jumped off the Andrea Doria and walked on board the Cape Ann. Is that
quite right? And all credit must be given to the men who were left aboard the ship. There were cooks, mess boys, wipers, ordinary seamen, and the stewards, anyone I could pick up. Men who have are not familiar with the process of lowering down accommodation ladders, but they did it and got them rigged, got lifelines rigged along the sides, boat ropes, pilot ladders hung over. Really, it was quite amazing, quite amazing.
In other words, they behaved like American seamen should.
Just the way you expect them to, what you read in the storybooks of the perfect rescue.
You have told me that one of the Andrea Doria's lifeboats came alongside you with survivors. Is that correct?
Yes. One of them, at a well-filled boat, must have been about, I'd say 75 to 80 person boat, possibly more, and packed in like sardines.
After you got them alongside, what did you do? Did the crew come out or the crew stay in?
The crew stayed in the boat. No, they helped all the passengers up the gangway with assistance of my men. They were lined along it, and then the boat crew went down again and manned their own boat. But by this time, my number one boat had come alongside, and the ship had drifted about a mile away from the scene with the wind blowing. So after I got my number one boat discharged, I told both boats to make fast with a boat rope, and I steamed close in again to the Andrea Doria, right into the midst of them, and cast both those boats off. Very shortly after that, then apparently it was all over.
And the Andrea Doria's boat with its crew went back to
the Andrea Doria. Yeah. My boat, about shortly after that, I got the signal that all survivors had been rescued, so I immediately recalled my number one boat. She still was in the hills.
How did you feel when all the survivors were off and you were released at the sea?
Felt very good. Felt very good that everything had gone off smoothly and there were no accidents. Generally, as you know, things that got happen in the middle of the night and an accident will happen as one or two men get killed. It almost seems inevitable that such things will happen. But it went off so nicely, and I really was relieved and felt very, very good. First radiogram that I sent to the Coast Guard and to the United Fruit Company was one in which I said I was proud of the conduct of the officers and crew.
And what was done to give comfort to the survivors? After all, this is a relatively small ship, and you don't have very much space. I guess you and your crew and officers have to kind of pitch in to help them to feel comfortable. I suppose some were old and some were sick and so on and so on. And then there was a question of feeding all those people.
Well, that's where the spirit department really came in, and the whole crew, down in the long crew elevator, I went down there about an hour after we got going, and I found women lying out in the sailors' bunks, women with children, people holding their leg up, broken ankles, and so on. And this was right in the quarters. I don't believe any of the crew really slept on the whole passage from there into New York.
That was after being out all night work.
After being out all night work. Of course, I had 6 staterooms, and most of the badly injured people were put in there. They had 12 bunks in there. And another spare room that we have up here on the top, which we call the pilot or cadet's room, with 2 men were in there.
Officers gave up their rooms too, I suppose?
Yes, the second and third officers. And one very fortunate thing about it was the fact that amongst the survivors there were 2 doctors, a surgeon, and a medical student. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done, because there was a woman with a broken spine, another with a broken shoulder, there were innumerable broken bones. In fact, to finish up, 9 people had to be carried off in stretchers. Could not move. They had to be actually carried off. So you can imagine how I had thought about that. In fact, when I saw some of the people, injured people being carried up, and I heard a murmur in the crowd, this woman had got a broken shoulder, I immediately went to the operator and told him the broadcast call for medical help. I knew I couldn't handle it. But a few minutes after that, the man came up on the bridge and he said he was a doctor. I felt very, very relieved with that.
You must have felt proud and happy steering up New York Harbor when you finally got there.
Well, it was a big moment. It really was. And somehow it seemed to make it all worthwhile. There was Anne, just an ordinary old freighter coming in there, and ocean liners and everything. From ocean liners to tugs saluting her, and one big Dutch liner went out there with a whole load of passengers who all around the rail and cheered, and the Dutchman Deputy Simpson. Made you feel very good.
Very gratifying.
Very gratifying, really was.
Now, something forward, perhaps you'd like to read us maybe your official letter on the affair and a couple of the congratulatory telegrams and so on. Would you like to do that?
It's nice to have it on record.
Go ahead, read it.
Now, here's the letter that I wrote to Mr. Robson, the Vice President of the United Fruit Company, under dated July the 20th. Dear Sir, at 2325, July the 25th, 1956, in latitude 40, 36 north, longitude 69, 35 west, while this vessel was proceeding from Bremerhaven to New York, the automatic radio alarm went off. In a few minutes, the radio operator informed me that two ships had collided at a point 15.5 miles to 148th through from our position. Course was immediately altered to bring us to this point. The wind was southwest, force 3, slight sea and low swell, dense fog, visibility near zero. At 11:53, both stations had sounded on the alarm bell, and all hands were informed of the disaster and the urgent calls for help. The fog still being very thick, the ship was maneuvered to within 1/4 mile by radar, and at 12:45, number 2 boat was sent off under command of Chief Officer R. Field. At 12:55, number 1 boat was sent off under command of Second Officer J. Jensen. Fog commenced to lift at about 1 o'clock, and thereafter remained clear with the near full moon shining. Both gangways were moored and rigged, boat ropes strung along the side, and all available ladders hung over the side. The steward was instructed to get coffee and sandwiches ready, to open the staterooms, have all available blankets at hand, and make all preparations for receiving survivors. At 2 o'clock, the number 2 boat returned, with about 40 survivors, discharged and left for another load. At 2:30, an Andrea Doria boat came alongside with about 50 survivors. At 2:45, number 1 boat came alongside with about 40 survivors. There were many injured persons with broken bones, and an urgent call was broadcast to medical assistance. Fortunately, 2 doctors were among the survivors, to whom I turned over all hospital supplies, drugs, and surgical instruments. This vessel being light and unable to maneuver while boats were being discharged, she had now drifted with a mile from the scene. The Andrea Doria's boat and our number 1 were told to hang on, and I again steamed in close and turned them loose. Meanwhile, number 2 boat had joined in the ferry service from the Andrea Doria to the Ile-de-France. At 3:30, number 2 boat returned, no more aid being required. Number 1 boat was recalled, and at 4:30, both boats were secured in the Davis, and permission requested from the Coast Guard to proceed. At 5:10, permission was granted, and thus proceeded at full speed for New York, with 129 survivors, 9 of whom were seriously injured. Arrival was made at Anvil's night vessel at 16:42, and the Cape Ann was saluted by all vessels in the harbour, from liners to tugs. Vessel docked at Pier 84, North River, at 7:28, and by 9:05, all survivors had been landed. The whole ship's company responded magnificently to the emergency and worked quietly and efficiently. The boats were lowered and hoisted with no more furore than a boat drill at anchor. The steward's department must be particularly commended for the amazing feat of serving scrambled eggs to all hands at breakfast and thereafter keeping up a regular supply of coffee and sandwiches. Outstanding was the action of H. Allen, saloon messman, member of number 2 boat crew, in jumping overboard and rescuing a child who had fallen in the water. I have no hesitation in saying that the part played by the Cape Ann at the Andrea Doria disaster fully lived up to the great traditions of the American Merchant Marine. Fate placed her in the midst of the greatest marine history and the greatest marine rescue in history, and she proved equal to the task. Yours truly, Joseph Boyd, man. That's my report to Mr. Robson. Now, I'd like to read the letter that Mr. Robson sent back to the whole ship's company.